Hi and welcome to Don't Be A Doormat. This is episode 5 and I'm Lisa Welsh. Thank you so much for joining me. Today I want to talk about the 7 different ways that people can react to you when you communicate your boundaries. And I call these the 7 Ds. Are you ready? Let me just tell you straight up, one of these is good, 6 of these are not so good. So this is what happens when you try and tell people no or try and set your boundaries. Just be prepared that people are not always going to like it, especially if they're used to controlling you. They don't necessarily want you to suddenly grow a backbone and start making your own choices, because it was quite nice when you used to just do whatever they wanted to do. Thank you very much. So be prepared. Okay, so the first D is deal. That means they accept what you've said. Maybe they even apologize for breaking and violating your boundary, and they accept completely and you move forward. Wonderful. That is like the happiest outcome. The second D is discuss. That means they're going to try and negotiate with you. They're going to try and find a chink in your armor or a loophole in your boundary that they can sneak through and get their own way anyway. They're going to try and discuss with you. Which is why when you say no, you should always be honest and not try and make up an excuse, because you end up just tying yourself in a knot. The third D is draw back. They might pull away, sulk. Oh, how could you say no to me? Oh, and then, sulk quietly for a moment. As long as they sulk quietly, that's fine. But really, you don't need to do anything about that. If they're sulking, that's their problem. Okay, next they might disregard. That is just kind of pretend like you never said anything and carry on anyway. Also, not quite what you'd hope for, and in that situation you would just need to restate your boundaries if they continue to do what you don't want them to do, or to treat you in a way that you don't want to be treated. A little step on from disregard is disrespect, and that is when they actively go out of their way to continue to violate your boundaries despite what you've said. And again, in that situation, you're going to have to restate your boundaries and tell them what your consequences are. Are you going to leave? Are you going to leave the room? Are you going to not meet them for coffee again if they continue that way, for example? The next D, I don't know how many I've done. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. D number 6 is dismissal. Dismissal is when they just basically try to tell you that you're wrong. They're like, no, you can't have that boundary. Oh, don't be silly. Or that's not how we do things. They just dismiss what you've said and try and just persuade you that they're right actually and you're wrong. The 7th D is the toughest one. That is showing displeasure. Actually showing you that they are not impressed that you are standing up for yourself. Who do you think you are to take care of your own needs? Okay, these are actually a little bit daunting. I'm maybe playing light on it, but they are daunting, especially for somebody like me who is a people pleaser. I hate it when people get angry. I just find it really, really draining. However, be prepared for it, because people are, especially if they're used to having their own way with you, they're not necessarily going to love it when you start to say, no, it's not okay to treat me like that. So displeasure can be shown through anger. Maybe they'll shout at you, maybe they'll get rough or aggressive, or just smash stuff up and stomp around. And then you must set a boundary to say that it's not okay to speak to you like that, if that is what you want to do. It's not okay for you to speak to me like that. It's not okay for you to act like this. And now I'm going to get out of here. You're going to put a physical boundary and you're actually going to get out. You're going to leave the room, leave the house, whatever it takes. Another way of showing displeasure is by putting you on a guilt trip. Oh, you know this one. This is your granny when she's like, oh, but I don't like doing these things on my own. Or, oh, that I'm sad if you don't call me for a week. Okay, maybe fair enough. You should call your gran. You should really call her. But with a guilt trip is when they're trying to either draw you into a drama or get you to do something for them that you actually don't want to do particularly, within reason. Some things you will want to do, but it's the guilt tripping. It's there's so many things, you really should eat this cake that I made because I spent so long on it. However, you're busy dealing with your gluten intolerance over here. So guilt is really just like a covert form of anger. And both guilt and anger are ways of trying to manipulate and control you. Once you actually start to see it for what it is, you can maybe deal with it better, because you realize that they're trying to control you and you don't want to be controlled. You are grown up. Another way of showing displeasure is by threats and consequences, like, well, if you don't do this, then I'm going to tell her what you did then, or I'm going to remove you from the will, or something along those lines. And then it's up to you to decide, is it worth it? Do you want to be able to control your own life, or are you just going to accept that they can go ahead with their threat or consequence and your boundaries matter that much to you? Tricky, these 7Ds, huh? As long as you start to try to understand that all of these reactions, apart from the first one, are some degree of trying to control or manipulate you so that you behave in a way that helps other people to meet their needs, that you go along with other people's preferences. Once you realize that your own preferences are valuable, that your time is short and that you are precious, you'll start to be able to handle all of these reactions with grace. You'll start to let them glide over your back without getting angry just because somebody's getting angry, without feeling awful just because somebody's trying to make you feel guilty. You'll be able to see these things for what they are, and from there you will be able to stand strongly by your boundaries and start to enjoy the life that you want to create. I'll share with you more tips and tricks as we go on. But for now, if you feel like you need a boundary BFF in your life helping you through each step of the way, please go ahead and drop me a message. I would love to hear from you. And other than that, thank you for watching, and I will see you next time.